Ladies and gentlemen, strap in because what just happened on NPR has Washington in absolute shock. With the nation already on edge after this horrific DC shooting that reignited the Deport Them All movement, NPR sat with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, for what she clearly thought was going to be like this soft little fireside chat. But instead, this turned into one of the most stunning on-air meltdowns that we've seen since a sitting member of Congress was ever interviewed. Because the moment that the host asked her one question about President Donald J. Trump, who is now leading the largest immigration enforcement operation in modern American history, AOC fell apart. Live on air, and not just a little bit. I'm talking about stuttering, backtracking, contradicting herself, panicking as the facts closed in around her. And then came the bombshell twist that she never saw coming. The NPR host confronted her with the breaking news that the FBI is now seeking interviews with Democratic lawmakers who told military and intel officers to ignore orders. That is when the meltdown went nuclear. At the exact moment that the country is demanding answers about the DC attacker, the deportation surge, and even the backfiring sanctuary city crisis, this is the moment AOC chooses to lose control on national radio. Well, tonight we're breaking it all down for you. Don't move, hit the like button and subscribe. So let's get into exactly what happened the moment the microphones turned on. AOC strolled into the NPR studio, acting like this is just another cozy, taxpayer-funded therapy session with friendly media. You can see it all over her face. She's smiling, relaxed, settling in like she's about to deliver one of her rehearsed monologues about democracy dying in darkness or whatever she's workshopped on X. But then, out of nowhere, the NPR host breaks from the script. The tone shifts a little bit. The first question is grounded, factual, and cuts directly into her core talking points. And then she freezes because this wasn't the NPR of 2019. This wasn't the NPR that echoed her slogans. This was an NPR host who came prepared with data, timelines, and receipts. And AOC realizes live on air that she didn't walk into a safe place today. She walked into an ambush. Her energy changes instantly. Her voice tightens. Her answers get shorter and shorter. And for the first time in years, AOC is actually being pressed and she's not ready. And then the host drops the question that detonates the entire interview. He calmly asks her to explain, not slogan shout, not hashtag, explain why she keeps calling President Donald J. Trump an authoritarian. And you can hear the gears grinding in her head. I mean, she starts with the usual buzzwords, authoritarianism, kleptocracy, corruption, illusion of power, but the host doesn't let her get away with it. He presses, what specifically has Trump done as president in 2025 that qualifies as authoritarian? Silence. A long, very uncomfortable silence. AOC tries again, repeating the same lines like she's been reading off of a bumper sticker. The host pushes again. Name one concrete example. And she can't, because since returning to office, Trump hasn't locked up a single member of Congress, hasn't dissolved any institutions, hasn't banned speech, hasn't targeted dissent. The only authoritarian claim that she has is the one that she brought into the studio, rehearsed and rigid, without any evidence to back it up. And the NPR host just exposed it live. And so this is where the entire interview takes a very sharp, brutal turn, because the host brings up the story that's dominating every headline today. The DC shooting, a brutal attack carried out by a foreign national right in the heart of the nation's capital, just days after President Trump accelerated immigration enforcement nationwide. The country's angry. Social media is on fire, and the phrase "deport them all" is now a top trending national demand. So the NPR host asked AOC the one question that she never wanted to hear. Why is your party fighting Trump's deportation surge at the exact moment that Americans feel the most unsafe? She freezes again. She mutters something about comprehensive reform. The host interrupts. He asks why her caucus blocked enforcement measures that could have prevented cases like this one. She pivots, he presses, she stumbles, and suddenly she's cornered not by a Republican, not by Trump, but by NPR, a place that she always trusted to protect her narrative. And this time they didn't. Now, imagine losing thousands of dollars simply because you didn't make a 10-minute phone call. That's what bad Medicare plans cause every year. Chapter finds the mistakes before they cost you. They analyze your Medicare coverage to save you from expensive errors. And most people are saving money, not losing it. Most people are already dialing the phone number right there at the bottom of your screen. Phone number is 909-563-8279, or they're visiting the link down below at askchapter.org/Ron. And speaking of that, I wanted to share something that one of our viewers emailed me because it genuinely reminded me why I partner with Chapter in the first place. So Gene Jansen wrote, "Thank you so much for telling us about Chapter and the wonderful work that they do. They actually built a program around my specific health needs With my new healthcare plan, I have features I didn't have before. Also, I'm saving money with zero copay for primary care and saving mileage too. My new primary care is 10 miles away, whereas my former primary care was 40 miles. Wow. Gene, just want to say thank you so much for that. Messages like yours really mean the world to me because people, they need to hear from real people who lived it. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience with me. And I know others that are listening to the show right now, they're going to connect with what you just said. So this is the moment that things get real messy because the host does something AOC clearly wasn't prepared for. He brings receipts, real ones. First, he brings up Biden's failed border bill and asks her why she keeps pretending Republicans blocked it when Democrats themselves admitted it that it was structurally broken. Then he brings up Biden's 2024 through 2025 executive orders. These are orders that looked suspiciously like Trump's, only weaker and slower, okay? So AOC tries saying Republicans refuse to act. The host counters that Biden had the same executive authority. Trump is using the same authority right now. Then she panics. Then he hits her with DHS data, visa overstays versus illegal crossings, and reminds her that under Biden, illegal crossings exploded past overstays for the first time in modern history. She then tries to walk around it, but every answer contradicts the one before it. So you could pretty much practically hear her scrambling to remember which talking point fits which crisis. And the tension in the room, it spikes as NPR exposes piece by piece. But, this just exposes just how thin her immigration arguments really are. And so just when AOC thinks that the pressure might ease up, the NPR host steps directly into the most explosive storyline of the week, the nationwide backfire from sanctuary policies. He brings up the chaos unfolding in New York City, Chicago, Denver, cities that are drowning under the weight of the migrant surge, cities where shelters are overflowing, schools are overwhelmed, and hospitals they're stretched beyond capacity. Cities that proudly declared no one is illegal, right up until the buses arrived in the tens of thousands. Now, the host quotes the headlines, sanctuary cities collapsing, local leaders begging for federal help, Democratic mayors breaking with Biden's old strategy. Wow. AOC, of course, tries to spin it as this humanitarian challenge, but NPR doesn't let her off the hook. They then push again. Isn't this what happens when a party refuses enforcement for years? She dodges, she pivots, she blames Republicans for weaponizing the issue, but then the host fires back. Or is it that your policies created the problem? And that's when AOC's voice starts shaking because the truth is unavoidable. The host pushes again. Why are working class voters leaving Democrats over immigration? Well, this is where AOC truly begins to unravel because the NPR host doesn't just stay on policy. He brings up the political earthquake that no Democrat wants to discuss. He mentions the polls, the defections, the shift among working class Black, Hispanic, and union voters. At once upon a time, the backbone of the Democratic Party. They're now flipping hard toward President Trump. So he asks AOC directly, why are the very communities you claim to represent abandoning your party over immigration? She tries blaming misinformation. The host interrupts. He cites union leaders furious over job displacement, parents angry about school overcrowding, neighborhoods overwhelmed by migrant drop-offs at 3 a.m. AOC tries saying voters feel anxious, but the host pushes back again. Anxious about what? The policies or the consequences of the policies? And AOC has no answer because working class Americans have seen impact firsthand on wages, safety, and community stability. Meanwhile, AOC defends policies she's never had to live under. NPR exposes that disconnect, and the cracks in her rhetoric widen with every second. So now we kind of reach the moment that detonates AOC's composure completely. The host calmly and methodically asks her a question that really could have been quite easy if her talking points actually held up. So he says, Congresswoman, regardless of your criticisms, isn't President Trump acting within the full legal powers of the presidency when he orders the removal of undocumented individuals? You could pretty much feel the shock ripple through the studio because answering no would mean lying on air. Answering yes would validate Trump's entire enforcement operation. And under pressure, AOC blurts out the truth. She admits on NPR that Trump's deportation efforts fall within legal authority. The host immediately follows up. So if it's legal, why do you oppose it? Especially after the DC shooting. AOC freezes. She panics. She has no policy argument left. There's no moral argument. There's no legal argument. She tries saying it's inhumane, but NPR reminds her that the attacker wasn't a dreamer or a child. He was a grown adult who exploited the system. And suddenly, AOC realizes that she just walked right into a trap. And so just when it seems like the interview can't get any worse for AOC, NPR hits her with a breaking story. This is the breaking story that has been sending shockwaves through Washington all morning. So the host asks, Congresswoman, what is your reaction to the FBI's request to interview Democratic lawmakers who encouraged military and intelligence officers to disobey illegal orders. Her face drops. This is the moment she didn't prepare for. This is the storyline the Democratic caucus is desperately trying to bury. The host calmly explains that several Democratic senators are now being scrutinized not for speeches or for social media posts, but for direct communication with federal personnel who are urging them to resist the commander-in-chief. Now, AOC, of course, tries to pivot back to Trump, but NPR cuts her off short. But President Trump hasn't targeted any lawmakers. Meanwhile, members of your party are under federal review. Doesn't this undermine your claims of authoritarianism? Wow. AOC absolutely stumbles, talking in circles about context and democratic norms, but the damage is done. NPR just shattered their entire narrative live. And so this right here, this is where the walls finally close in on AOC, because after she tries, again, to paint Trump as some looming authoritarian threat, the NPR host does something absolutely devastating. He brings up actual examples of government weaponization, and none of them involve Trump. He lists them one by one. Peter Navarro, jailed. Steve Bannon, jailed. Conservative groups swept into mass investigative dragnets. Hundreds of right-leaning activists placed under federal review during the Biden years. DHS misinformation monitoring programs targeting churches and parent groups. Federal surveillance that spiraled beyond its legal authority. So then he asked her very calmly, if Trump really is the authoritarian, then why were all the aggressive actions taken under the previous administration? AOC had no answer because the host just did what most legacy journalists refuse to do. He compared her rhetoric to the actual record. She tries dismissing it as conspiracy, but NPR shoots back immediately. These were official prosecutions. These were real sentences. AOC visibly deflates. Her narrative doesn't match the facts. For the first time, the illusion cracks. And so now the meltdown becomes undeniable because the NPR host brings out the numbers, the cold, unspinnable data from DHS and CBP. So AOC repeats the old Democratic talking point that most undocumented people overstayed visas. But the host interrupts politely and says, that hasn't been true since 2022. Under President Biden, illegal entries surpassed overstays by historically large margins. AOC freezes. The host continues, reminding her that millions crossed illegally during the Biden years. Overwhelming cities, social systems, and law enforcement, that sanctuary cities had begged for relief, that governors across the South had demanded federal action and they were ignored. He asked her point blank, if visa overstays aren't the main issue anymore, then why are you still talking like it's 2015? AOC stutters, laughs nervously, tries to reframe the conversation, anything to regain control, but NPR doesn't budge. They stay locked in on the facts. Every attempt that she makes contradicts her last. Her arguments collapse on themselves, and the audience can hear it. AOC is out of depth, out of talking points, and pretty much out of time. And so now the NPR host moves into the territory Democrats fear the most, the political trap. So he brings up the latest polling from Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Colorado, the states that Democrats must absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, win in 2026 and in 2028. And he points out the one trend that they can't explain away. Voters in those states, they're turning toward Trump faster than at any point since 2016. Now, the host cites crime reports that are linked to border surges and cases in Phoenix, Reno, Aurora, and Atlanta that local officials directly tied to the breakdown of enforcement under the previous administration. AOC tries to say the data is being weaponized, but of course the host cuts in. These aren't Republican talking points. These are police briefings, mayoral statements, and statewide memos. AOC's voice tightens again because she already knows what the NPR host is really saying. The immigration crisis isn't abstract anymore. It's not a DC debate. It's hitting suburban neighborhoods, union work sites, and swing state schools, the exact communities that her party has been losing, and now they're gone. And so then comes the final blow that ends the interview and AOC's composure completely. So the NPR host, in the calmest voice possible, lays out the logic. Congresswoman, President Trump's enforcement surge is reducing illegal crossings. Biden's executive orders fail to do that. Cities overwhelmed under Biden are stabilizing now. Voters see results. Isn't that the simplest explanation, that one strategy worked and the other one didn't? AOC's panic is unmistakable. She tries accusing the host of echoing right-wing framing. But the host isn't quoting Republicans. He's quoting DHS reports that were dated this month. Democratic mayors begging for relief, and border state Democrats are privately admitting that Trump's policies restored control. AOC has nowhere left to go because NPR isn't attacking her. They're simply laying out what Americans already see. Trump's plan is working. Her party's plan didn't work, and her talking points can't survive contact with reality. The interview ends not with a mic drop, but with silence. This is the kind that tells you a narrative has finally collapsed. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below.